Welcome into the garage area. We were asking for tire wear, and boy did we get it at Bristol. Cars could only go about 50 laps on a run before they ended up with just cords on those tires. And I don't know about you, Ryan, I thought it was pretty wild to see the dramatic amount of tire wear that we had.
Yeah.
But I was very much entertained, and I'm curious to know what the vast majority of people are going to think about this race. Overall, I was very happy to see the tire wear. That's what we were asking for. That's what we got. And the problem with it was that we were discussing you got a little bit too much of it a little too quickly, I think is the issue. And, you know, people are talking about if you give the teams the same setup in the fall or the same tire compound, they can adjust their car setup in order to kind of mitigate some of this major amounts of wear that we were seeing. And hopefully that's exactly what happens, because this was great as far as seeing a run progress and seeing tires fall off. That's exactly what we were looking for. Don't want to see tires blow out.
No.
But you definitely...
For the most part, they didn't blow out. And once they got to the cords, they were riding on cords. So
exactly.
They had a warning. So
yeah, Denny Hamlin talked about that today. He said that you could definitely tell once you went from tire to no tire at all. Like you were down on the cords. And that was your sign of like, all right, you need to limp it around here and get to pit road or wait till the end of the stage or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was a great show overall. The only thing that I didn't like was the dramatic fall off of both speed and just grip gone right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think that you put something like this together, and we're not talking about horsepower anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of the horsepower. I would like to see more of it. I don't think you could do something like this at a 1.5 mile racetrack and have the same result.
Yeah.
But I would like to see the increased horsepower wear tires. That be a component in the equation, that the increased horsepower does end up wearing the tires some. Obviously, that's a direction that NASCAR does not want to seem to go for whatever reason in increasing that horsepower. But if we're getting tire wear like this, you're going to get people like me to shut up a little bit more about it, because that was great. I mean, I want to see that. You know, one race that always sticks out to me, I don't know why. There was a Texas race in, I want to say 2005 in the fall, that Carl Edwards won. He was leading, and a bunch of cars came down pit road, and a bunch of cars stayed out. He put 4 tires on, and I think there was probably 20 laps to go. When they dropped the green flag, he said if you got me out 6th or better, that he could go back up and win the race. Yeah. And with those 4 fresh tires, I mean, he was able to go back up there and win it. But he didn't take the lead with very many laps to go. And that's the kind of racing that, man, I really love to see is give me a few guys staying out. Can somebody make it on the old tires? Are they going to have enough grip left? And is somebody going to have a good enough race car with 4 brand new ones to go up there and pass them for the lead? And this is the closest thing I've seen to anything like that in a long time. I was very pleased. I know that people are going to overreact to this, but it was awesome in my opinion. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought the whole concept of it was intriguing, the chaos it created. I mean, chaos is always exciting to watch.
Yeah.
So, that's I just wish it would last the stretch of the tires could last a little bit longer. They could be a little bit more aggressive than what maybe they were, because I feel like they were just barely driving there at points too. So, you know, I like to see somebody be able to go out and lead. And I feel like the couple of cars, they were just swapping the lead, just kind of minding their pace. I'd like to see them like still be able to fight, and then slow down, but not just like all right, you go ahead, I'll go ahead, or this, because Denny talked about him and Larson made a deal where they were going to run side by side like they would at the plate tracks and just block behind them.
Yeah.
And I don't remember which. I think Denny said that he was running the outside and that wore his tires out more, so that didn't hold up for too long. But you know, I mean, Bristol, normally you want these cars to get into lap traffic and then see if the leader and how well they get through lap traffic. That's kind of part of the intrigue there. But you know, I think they hardly got into lap traffic until that long green run. So maybe that's kind of what we needed, were those long green runs still.
Yeah, it could have been that. I can say that I wanted to wait. Normally we record on Sunday night. I wanted to wait till tonight, being Monday, because I wanted to gather a little more information, because Goodyear talked about it during the race, said that this was the same tire compound that they brought in the fall, and they did not experience this kind of fall off, and they weren't sure what was going on, basically.
Yeah.
They also said the track wasn't taking rubber very well, which was very clear.
Yeah.
I think that you had several different factors. One would be just the regular air temperature. Denny Hamlin talked about it on his podcast too, that Martinsville, which has concrete corners, won't take rubber if it's less than 65 degrees out.
Yeah.
And obviously it wasn't super warm in Bristol this past weekend, and that very well could have played a factor. I know that having the resin instead of PJ1 was also a variable in this equation.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's not like they made. I would think that making tires is an exact science. Like it's you add a little of this and a little of that and whatever the other thing is, and that comes out this this tire compound.
Yeah.
And I would think that you do the same thing every time, you're going to get the same results every time. But I mean, I'm no scientist, but that would be my interpretation of how that process would work. And if they did that exact same thing, then I can see why they would be confused as to why you're getting these results in the spring versus in the fall, if they were indeed the same set.
Yeah, like Ryan Blaney, I don't know if you saw the comments he made. I think there was like a front stretch on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw his comments, or he believed Goodyear brought different tires and didn't tell the teams. And that he was upset about it, and that we need to be testing this stuff and whatnot. But supposedly the extra set of tires they were given, which I don't think they needed to be used, I think they all ended up in that last street flag run, not all having one set left, maybe except for a couple. But Joey Logano, I think, was the only one they put that set on just to get rid of it. So they had the newer sets at the end. They did drive different, whether it was because they were just older, built last year at a different time, or what happened, whether they changed the compound, messed up the compound on this set, or what happened.
I'm glad to hear you talk about Joey that way, because there was some conflicting reports as to whether or not he put on scuffs or if he put on the newly released set of tires on his car.
They put on the release set that was an older set of tires.
They were tires left over from the fall batch that they made at that point. That was what I had heard from the 22's radio. Yeah. But I know that there was several other people saying that he put on scuffs, and that's why he went right to the back, because there were teams doing that. And that, like, my point being, there was conflicting reports, and I was sure that he put on that new old set, if that makes sense, the new set from the previous batch. So there was a whole lot of different things swirling around this weekend. Ryan Blaney's comments are the only thing that I've heard that made even like some sort of conspiracy theory was going on there. And Blaney was fired up this weekend. Yeah. They asked him about Ross Chastain in the post race, and he said that he didn't want to talk about that and have a good day, and he walked away. And I don't know. Yeah. We can talk about him in a little while. Overall, again, I'll say good race. We need to make some improvements, but I don't feel like we're stuck against a dead-end wall anymore. I felt like before it was just, these cars are aerodynamic dependent, and we're not going to do anything to increase horsepower or tire wear. And we got to tire wear this time. Yeah. And I feel less concerned about horsepower at short tracks, and I feel like I have a little bit more confidence in this next-gen race car than I did before, if we're going to be able to see races like this.
What was curious about Bristol is they actually run the intermediate package at Bristol. So I don't know if the horsepower is different or not. I don't remember the horsepower differences. I feel like they put more horsepower on at the short tracks, and the intermediates have a lesser horsepower.
I need to turn on notifications for Bob Pockris and see if he actually puts out the specifics of the package each week, because that's something I'd love to know. Yeah. Is what category package is this this weekend? Yeah. Like you said, in the intermediate package, what does that entail for horsepower? What is that what is the dynamics of that being the intermediate package? Yeah. The details of it. And I'd like to see that before each and every race. And maybe I'll go ahead and tweet Bob and let him know that I'm looking forward to that information. But, I agree with you 100%. NASCAR, we did talk about it just kind of off the cuff there, that NASCAR did release an extra set of tires to the teams because of the excessive wear that they were seeing. I thought that was a great move. Yeah. And like you said, most of those guys left them laying in the pits. I think Denny said that was their final set was the released set.
Yeah.
And they never ended up putting them on. Yeah, the great move by them. Great move by Goodyear to have them available.
Yeah.
Just a big heads up by everybody. I don't know how many teams were anticipating this high tire wear. I know that Fox's broadcast showed Noah Gregson's team before the race in the hauler meeting, and Drew Blickensderfer, his crew chief, had said that he was concerned that you could see a high amount of tire wear this particular week based on what they'd seen in practice.
Yeah.
So
I saw, I just finished DBC.
Oh.
And Tyler Reddick was on there, and he was talking about they had cords showing in practice. So they anticipated that since there was only half the cars out at a time, that the track would rubber up once they got the full field out there, and the tire wear wouldn't be as big of an issue. And the track just didn't take rubber.
And not at all. It was, they talk about racetracks being cheese graters with tires. It literally looked like you took a cheese grater to those tires.
Yeah.
I mean, it was coming off in long strips rather than marbled up like you normally see. The other thing that I thought was curious was when they took the tires off, normally you see an 1.5 or 2 inch wide band of cords showing on tires on the inside part of the tread.
Yeah.
This was it looked like you tore wallpaper off drywall. It just were big rips of rubber off the tires. It wasn't necessarily an evenly wide wear pattern, which I thought was kind of odd. I have no idea what to make of that. I just thought it was an interesting thing. We talked at the beginning of the year about the new Fords and the new Toyotas. I think the Toyotas have figured it out.
Yeah.
They seem to have showed up.
Yeah, at least Joe Gibbs by far. Yeah. So
They were in position to run 1, 2, 3, 4 and did run 1, 2, 3, 4 for a lot of the day. And I was very impressed with what they put together. It didn't seem like anybody was going to touch Ty Gibbs for most of the day.
No.
He won the first stage, won the second stage, and I think he finished 9th.
Yeah.
And probably should have won the race, but it seemed like he got a little too antsy.
Yeah, I think he got pretty aggressive there at the end. So.
And man, I just hate to even think about it, because all he needs to do is mature a little bit more and put that racecraft together a little bit more, and he would have dominated this race.
Yeah.
It was just, I'm going to win my first race. I'm going to make sure I keep this car out front, and he ran himself out of tires too soon.
Well, I don't remember, was it the second stage that he had to, they originally put on scuffs, or just before the start of the second stage or something?
Yeah.
He had to start in the back because of a penalty.
Yes.
The one crewman fell over the wall trying to catch the tire. And they put on, they took stickers off and put scuffs on for that few short laps or something at the end of the stage, and then put the stickers back on when everyone put scuffs on. He drove from the back to the front and won the next stage. I think that's how it worked out.
Yeah, there was.
So he definitely had a fast car.
Yeah, he had a fast car. You're right. He did get off sequence because of the penalty there at some point in that. I'm not sure exactly how that all panned out, but I do know that did happen to some degree of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really wild the way that drivers were getting shuffled from the front to the back, to the front to the back. Really throughout the majority of the race, but especially at the end. Once you had that long green flag run in there, it just fouled everything up as far as running order went.
Yeah.
And because not everybody could go to this, it's not like it was a fuel run issue where everybody's got to pit right around the same lap. This was dramatically, and
depending on when your tire fell off.
When your tire fell off, how aggressive you were to lean on that tire, and the fall off speed was so dramatic. It looked like people were standing still, and I don't remember who. It must have actually. I think it was Ryan Blaney when he came down pit road and put new tires on. He looked like I saw him pass one car on the high side entering a turn, and then drop to the bottom and pass the other car on the exit of the corner, just because he had that much more grip in those tires. And I think he was 4 laps down at that point, just because of everything that had shaken out.
Yeah, I think in Blaney, was he running top 10 at that when he had to pit?
I think so, because he ran towards the front quite often.
Yeah, because I think what happened to him was, versus how Hamlin still stayed up front, is not necessarily the timing of when the tire went, but how long he stayed on them cords.
I see.
Because I think Blaney stayed on them cords for many laps trying to hope someone else's loop their car around and bring out a caution. So that put him 4 laps down, whereas Hamlin and Truex, they still were on tires when until the cords came. Then they pitted.
Yeah.
So they still had their speed up until they pitted. Whereas like Blaney and a bunch of other drivers riding around on the cords lost a lot of track.
Yeah, they did lose a lot of time doing that, like you said. I know Blaney had a speeding penalty as well on the second to last pit stop, which put him behind.
Oh, okay.
So he was already behind to start with, and I think that was part of the reason why they stayed out there so long, was they were trying to catch a caution to get a little bit of a break to get their track position back.
I did not see that part. Yeah.
That was my understanding of that situation. In the end, it only left 5 cars in the lead lap, and that was impressive, I guess. That's the first time that's happened since, do you know when?
No.
I don't know the actual race, and I tried to look it up to find out, and without pulling up the race results from every race that year and going through them each at a time, it was since 2004. So it'd been exactly 20 years since we'd only had 5 cars on the lead lap in a cup race. So that's your trivia for this week. Let's talk about our picks for this week. We didn't do a preview show. Didn't even do a preview video like I had been doing the past couple weeks. Reason being that there just really wasn't a whole lot to preview. We didn't know anything about what was going to happen. This the first time in 4 years, I think it was 4 years, that we're not on dirt.
Yeah.
That you got cooler temperatures. It's during the day. There's just a whole lot of unknowns coming into this week, and there really wasn't a whole lot to predict. But we still made our picks, and being that it's Bristol, I said, give me Denny Hamlin.
Yeah.
And
you got to pick first. So
yep, I got to pick first because you won the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And your pick was Tyler Reddick, who looked strong at one point and decided that he was going to stay out on old tires.
Yeah.
And when he did, this was before we knew exactly how bad the tire wear was.
Yeah.
This was the first caution. I think that was it Byron?
Byron, yeah.
Was Byron a caution, or was Stenhouse getting spun right after that? I think Byron came to pit road under green. I don't think they threw a yellow for him.
They called it for debris because
you're right.
A banner or something on the track. So it was that incident.
Anyways, Reddick ended up staying out and going to the front, and it did not take long for him to get swallowed up, and he got ping-ponged around there by several different guys, including his own teammate in Bubba Wallace, and got turned to the inside of the racetrack.
And Josh Berry punted him a couple times coming out of 3 and 4. So.
Yeah. Josh Berry, we'll talk about Josh in a minute. He ran into a lot of race cars, but he ran into them the way that a short track driver runs into people.
Yeah.
Like, he would wash up in the corners and door slam you a little bit, so to speak. He'd just kind of lean on you a little bit in the corners, and he'd hit you in the back bumper quite often, but by the way it looked. But I didn't think there was anything egregious or out of the ordinary there. It's just he made a lot of contact throughout the day. And Tyler Reddick was one of the cars that he made contact with. And Reddick ended up going spinning down the front stretch down to the inside of the racetrack. And what seemed to be pretty avoidable contact, but happened anyways, was Zane Smith come in there and just drove his nose into his race car.
It reminds me of video games when a caution comes out in front of you and they're all slow up and you try to get as many positions as you can before a caution comes out or something. That's what it reminded me of, and then the car comes out in front of you and you have nowhere to go.
Yep. And that's what happened to him.
Just didn't have the reset button, I guess.
No, and should have. And ended up ruining Tyler. I don't know if that's specifically what ruined Tyler Reddick's day, but it definitely put him behind.
Yeah.
And he ended up finishing P30, and Denny Hamlin finished first. So, in the last 3 weeks, we've had you predict Kyle Larson winning at Las Vegas, you had Christopher Bell winning at Phoenix, and I had Denny Hamlin winning here at Bristol. I'm really not sure why you would tune into any other show when you're looking to find out who's gonna win each and every week. And we definitely got to start putting our content out there before the race weekend if that's the case, so that people that are trying to make a little money on this know who to put that money on. When we started our idea of making picks this season, I told Ryan, I said, we got to make some sort of bonus point system for picking the race winner. And he goes, it's probably not going to happen that often. We said 3 weeks in a row when we picked the correct driver.
Yeah, we picked the winners more than we didn't pick winners.
And some other pretty high finishes besides.
Yeah.
So, really, I just think that we're doing a phenomenal job here, and we need to keep it up. But we talked about William Byron being part of that caution. He was the first casualty of the day. I don't remember who was on the bottom. Logano was in the middle, going to the back. Like, he was dropping. And he ended up... whatever car was on the bottom made contact with Joey, which shoved him up into the 24 and put him in the wall. Really ruined his day right off the bat, which it broke a toe link, which was a big issue. Put them behind big time, which was kind of a shame because I thought that he really had I felt like he was somebody that could have been a factor at the beginning of the day. But when you saw the race that we saw, you don't really have any idea whether he would have been or not because it just everything got shook up so bad.
So I saw to the point about William Byron, there was I think it's called Racing Analytics on Twitter, and they put out a post, had the last 50 laps been ran at medium speed. These were the top 15 drivers and where they finished. William Byron still had top 15 speed at the end of that race. He would have finished in the top 15. I don't remember exact position it was, but he still had a fast car. So
yeah, he did for sure. We talked about Josh Berry. He was somebody that hung out at the front quite a bit. I should say near the front. He wasn't necessarily leading the race a ton, but he was up front. Speaking of leading, what was it? 52 lead changes. It was some wild number.
It was 52 or 54. It was one of the something.
It was a large number of lead changes. To me, that's not really a metric to measure how good the race was.
Yeah.
But I know it gets talked about a lot, and it was certainly a record. I think the Bristol record was 40 lead changes prior to this.
Well, the first 30 to 60 laps when they were figuring out their tire wear, whether they could or couldn't drive the cars, the leader would drive to the front of the race, and then or guy would drive to the lead, and then his tires would fall out, and he'd fall back. Next guy drive to the lead, and he'd fall back. It almost reminded me of restrictor plate racing. Every other lap, there was a new leader. So,
yeah, and you saw it with Denny Hamlin that he'd have cars go by him, including Ty Gibbs, to where Denny this was the pace he was going to run.
Yeah,
and guys would go by him and pass him, and he didn't care. This is where I need to run to make my tires last. And like I said, Josh Berry, one of those guys that seemed to manage that at least decent. Stayed up there near the front, ended up finishing 12th. Not a bad run for all things considered, for all the drama that happened at Bristol. Stewart Haas seems to be gaining a little bit of momentum.
Yeah.
We're however many weeks into the season now. What is this, week 5?
Yeah.
Something like that. And for a team that was an absolute dumpster fire last year, they seem to be in a position where they're not running too bad as a whole team. They're not putting all 4 cars together every single week.
Yeah.
But they have at least a couple cars that are relevant every week. And I think they finished 3 of the 4 finished right together. Noah Gregson, I know, hit the wall pretty hard at one point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where he ended up, but I'm pretty sure they all finished 12th, 13th, 14th, right in that range.
Yeah, 12th, 13th, and 14th was Josh, Chase, and Priest.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, they're definitely picking up speed a little bit, in my opinion. There. We didn't really talk about him a whole lot, and I didn't even put him in our notes. But are you concerned? I mean, I'm sure you're not concerned because you don't care about him. But Joey Logano, do you think that something's wrong in that team, or are they just having such bad luck right now?
He was up front at one point, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was.
Was that before they started slowing down for the tires and stuff? I think
he started running in the top 10 somewhere. I think he qualified 4th, and he ran 6th for a while, and then he started to back up out of the top 10. At the end of stage 2, he was leading with 5 or 6 to go, and Ty Gibbs came and passed him and won the second stage. So, but that was definitely running as hard as he could, and then ran out of tires, and Gibbs went up and passed him. So, yeah, I mean, he did run near the front, but he finished 22nd or something like that.
Yeah, he hasn't. I don't feel like I've really noticed him to run very good anywhere. So
no, he is not.
It is kind of concerning.
Other than the restrictor plate tracks, he ran well there.
Yeah.
Had good cars there. I should say did not run well there if you want to just look at the finish.
Yeah.
But
he got wrecked out at both of those.
Yeah, he did.
So, I mean,
Vegas started at the front, went right to the back. Phoenix was never a factor. And then again this week just was, like I said, he was at the front a couple times, but that was purely through strategy. We do know he put that bad set of tires on and went to the back.
Yeah.
He was running near the top 10 at that point, so that didn't help him any. I think he was running 12th or something at that point. But yeah, I am a little concerned as a Joey Logano fan what that is going to entail for that team. I don't see him turning it around at COTA by any means. So really getting a little concerned at that point.
Yeah.
Especially for as well as the rest of the Fords are running with RFK, front row.
yeah.
Stewart Haas is picking it up a little bit, and Blaney's running well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a little concerning as the 22 team is as bad as they are. But that's just my own little side note there. We talked about Josh Berry running well. We should talk about John Hunter Nemecheck. He's another guy that ran in the top 10 pretty much all day.
Yeah.
Saw him up there a lot. Kept that 42 car up there in contention on TV a lot. And he got a good finish. Ended up 6th. So I don't know if that's really something that's going to carry over week to week. But certainly this one was a good run for him. And I'll tell you,
he was on another one of those Toyotas, so I don't know if they all had a similar setup too. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Toyotas as a whole were really fast this week. I'll tell you who is quietly having a good year is Chase Elliott. He finished 8th today. Decent run for him, but I think he's like 6th in the points or something.
Yeah, he's 6th in points. That's his first top 10 of the year.
But either way, he's for somebody. You have not even heard his name hardly mentioned at all this year.
Yeah.
And like you said, if this is his first top 10 of the year, you understand why. But he's the most popular driver in the sport. He missed a decent chunk of the season last year with injuries and suspension. And now he's back to being, I want to just say, relevant.
Yeah.
And you're just not hearing a whole lot about him. I would expect that to ramp up a little bit. And I bet you he probably has a pretty decent week at COTA.
Yeah. He was running like just barely in the top 20 before that final green flag stint. I think that was what really helped him to get into the top 10 because, of course, I was following him because I'm a fan, and when they all started dropping, he got up to the top 5 before he had to pit, and then I think that's kind of what gave him all them positions, and then all them guys who had to pit early in that sequence ended up ahead of him where he was inside the top 15 at that point. Since they stopped early, then their tires went out again and they fell back and Chase got those few positions again. So it's not like he ran very good. I mean, he led laps there at the beginning, but that was when they were pushing full out before they didn't realize, our tires are going to go to junk. So
yeah. Ryan Blaney, we talked about him. He qualified on the pole, ran up front most of the day, finished 16th. And because of that speeding penalty was a big issue there. And as you said, noted conspiracy theorist, and he does not want to talk about Ross Chastain. That's really all we got to say about Ryan this week. We talked about Front Row Motorsports running well. McDowell finished 11th. Gilliland, he ran up front all day, but didn't end up getting a good finish, ended up 26th. Bad tire strategy at the end, or ran out of tires at the wrong time, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch, up and down.
Yeah.
And a lot more down than up, and some backwards. We saw that a little bit. He got spun out on the backstretch and had a flat tire, and he just drove her backwards for a little while until he got the car on the apron and spun
Seems
out.
to do that a lot.
Yeah, he does run in reverse quite a bit. I don't know if he's showing off or if he just likes that camera that much, but either way, he's one of the few.
Yeah.
I think it's since they put him in that commercial that where the people had the controllers for Toyota. This was like back in 08 or something when Toyota first came in. The kids had the controllers for the race cars, and he's sitting there like this with his hands up,
that's
running
coming
backwards.
back to me.
I should have made such an obscure joke and tried to explain that in the whole thing. But anyways, he would go to the back, drive to the front, go to the back. He had pit road issues, all kinds of problems. Ended up finishing P25, and from what I saw on Twitter, he got out of the race car and left the racetrack, and that was all you heard from him. He didn't have anything to say to anybody. Got to be frustrating for him because he definitely had a fast car at times.
Yeah. Well, he drove up to the lead at one point, too, in that first stint when, but everyone else's tires were going, and he was still going hard. So
yeah,
it's hard to really judge in them first 30 to 60 laps who really had the best car because they didn't realize how bad they were falling off.
Very true. Like we've talked about multiple times already, the whole tire strategy thing just really shook up the whole field. Larson ended up in 5th. And he said that he didn't even know how he got there.
Yeah. Well, because he had the penalty. He had the penalty.
Yep. Was it a tire penalty? Got away from him. Several people had that today.
It was considered
safety
violation because a tire ran into the crew member in front of him. So, and then I think that's kind of a similar situation to Chase Elliott because I think when the whole sequence started, Larson was actually behind Elliott. And through that whole sequence and people falling off and stuff. But Elliott and Larson all held on longer than even he probably held on a lot better than Elliott did at the point. So because earlier in the race they were talking about Larson had the better tires at times that he was showing less cord. So because I watched him when he was running with the Gibbs cars that he wasn't going out and leading. He was just staying in the top 5. So I think he was just biding his time in the top 5 until the end of the race, and then when that caution or that sequence of pit happened, that ruined his race. So had he not had that penalty, he could have easily fought for the win, I think.
Wow. He wasn't really somebody that I took note of to say that he had a strong race car today, but I wasn't aware of all of the information that you just said there that he was that strong today.
Yeah, I mean, Gibbs were 1, 2, 3, 4, of course, but Larson was the next car in line.
I gotcha.
And I just don't think he was pushing it because I think he was one of the first guys I heard they talk about on the radio saying, all right, if you run these lap times, we'll be fine or be better. So.
I gotcha. And Larson was the only driver that I heard that complained about the racing.
Yeah.
He was the only one that did not like it from the interviews that I heard.
Yeah. I don't think Blaney liked it too much.
I don't think Blaney liked much anything this week, and I think that was just frustration as a whole. But yeah, even Alex Bowman ended up finishing P4, and we know that he's a hack, so I don't know how he ended up getting there. I am going to start a compilation of all the times I've said Bowman's a hack. But yeah.
A hack show, huh?
Yeah, it is. He is. Don't know how he has ever had any success in stock cars. Of course, the big story of the day was JGR and how well they ran. You already referenced that. Ran 1, 2, 3, 4 for a long period of the race. Big story being Ty Gibbs winning the first 2 stages and just having poor management of his tires there at the end, finishing in 9th, just ahead of Bell, who was another part of that 1, 2, 3, 4 equation, and he finished 10th. The interesting note that I thought out of this race that stuck out to me was the guys that finished 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Were the most experienced and the guys that would have run in the era where you had to manage tires every week. And that was Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Brad Keselowski. There's not really anybody else. I even looked through the field. There was nobody else that even came to mind of like, oh yeah, they should have been up there too. Kevin Harvick was the next person that I thought about. No, he's in the booth, so he wasn't going to do it. Wasn't going to do any good. Really impressed with them. Really impressed with RFK and how well they've been running. They're not battling for wins, but they're just so in it every week when it comes to the end that they're going to get one just luckily at some point.
Yeah.
You'd have to think. But yeah, that tire wear being the biggest story, the Toyotas being another big story. Was there anything else from the Cup race that you felt was noteworthy? Anybody else that we should have highlighted that we missed?
I can't think of anything right now. So
the only other thing of note that I could think of from this week is Blaney fell out of the points lead, but Truex and Larson are now tied for the points lead, I do believe, in the regular standings, not the playoff standings. I think they both have 185 points apiece. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that I wouldn't have guessed Martin to be somebody that's up there battling for the points lead right now, just because I haven't noticed him near the front as much as he has been. But definitely a strong one for him today. Him and Denny really battled in lap traffic for that win at one point, and it's so weird. I've never been this happy about a Denny Hamlin win, but because of me being the guy that picked him this week. But I was really hoping that Truex would beat him out, just because I'd rather see Truex win than Denny. But yeah, definitely a good battle there at the end in lap traffic, and you know that those guys were screaming on the radio to their spotters, "Get these guys out of my way!" Anything else from the Cup race you wanted to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
We're running a little long here, but there was no Xfinity race this weekend. I didn't watch the truck race. Is there any insight that you have to that? Did you end up watching it?
I watched it.
I know that Kyle Busch led a lot of the race. Did it look like he was going to win it?
He wasn't his dominant leading. There was always someone within a shot or a distance of him and stuff. But Eckes clearly had a better truck. It wasn't. Only when Eckes started getting the lap traffic is when Kyle caught him.
I see.
It was kind of one of those deals. I don't think anybody pitted the last half of the race. I think stage 2 was their last pit stop. And so,
tire wear not a factor in the truck series.
Supposedly there was people that were showing cords by the end of that race, but not nearly like the Cup race.
Not like the Cup race.
Yeah, that's as far as that goes. That's about all I got for.
Eckes won the race. Kyle Busch near the front a lot. Couldn't get the win. I know that there was a big kerfuffle with Nick Sanchez and Stewart Friesen.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So the way I see it is Sanchez got a run on the high side and stuck his nose between Friesen and the wall, and Friesen came up and got pinched into the wall. I see it as I think they talked about it on DBC even that the spotters should have told Friesen he's coming with a run to leave room, and there was no reason for him to come up like that. Whether it was a spotter thing or not, I don't think Sanchez did anything wrong. So,
did you think Friesen was going to clobber him?
I didn't really see too much of the fight.
Oh, that's about all I saw of that race.
Yeah, so that was I saw there was a scuffle, but I didn't really look too much into it. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, Friesen looked like he was towering over Sanchez, and he reached over there and grabbed his collar, and Sanchez was just smiling at him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he's going to punch that smile right off his face. But it never ended up coming to that. So.
Sanchez the one who had it with Crafton last year, too?
I think so. Yes. Yeah, he got walloped at the end of the year at, was it Talladega?
That was Talladega,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, he sucker punched him. That was Sanchez just rubbing some of those old guys the wrong way. Anything else you want to talk about from the Bristol weekend?
That's all I got.
That's all I got too. Would really appreciate you guys tuning into the garage area. This is where you got to show up to get your most accurate race predictions. We appreciate that. Appreciate you guys watching, listening, following us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Really appreciate all the support. Make sure you continue to do so. Like, comment, and subscribe at the garage area. We want to hear from you, and we'll make sure to talk to you again after COTA.